My name's Mark from Power Innovations Australia. Today I want to introduce you to one of our products. It's called the Feed Boss Saliva Lick Feeder. This is one of our larger models, the 3.2 cubic metre feeder. 3.2 cubic metres equates to around about 2.5 tonnes of wheat, roughly 1.6 tonne of oats, or equivalent to about 30 bags. Of course, it can be used in not just grain, but it can be used on pallets as well. Okay, being a saliva lick feeder, it's a little bit different to some of the other types of feeders on the market. Sure, it can be used as a straight gravity type feeder, but the idea of a saliva lick feeder is that you're actually controlling the amount of feed that the animal gets by the moisture on its tongue. So while its tongue is wet, it can get more. It can take the grain or the feed. When its tongue dries out, then it's much harder, and the animal will actually walk away. When its tongue gets wet again, it will come back and have another shot at it. So if we look at the saliva part or the feed section down the bottom, we actually have two adjusters. We have a top adjuster and we have a bottom adjuster. The top adjuster can go in and out like this, and it controls the flow rate or the amount of grain that can fall into the feed area. Okay, so this is what you'd have on typically a lot of feeders. The bottom adjuster controls the gap, which is the gap between the top adjuster and here. Now this is the area that the animal will be putting its tongue into to get the feed. Behind there, we actually have a Teflon coating, which is something quite unique to our feeders. This Teflon coating is just additional protection for the galvanised steel, because in animals, particularly sheep, you'll have a level of acid in the tongue or on the saliva. So this provides an additional level. Even if the adjuster started to rust, it got through the galvanising, well, the adjusters are very easy and inexpensive to replace. The tray itself, of course, is there to catch any dropped grain, and of course it will be eaten, not wasted. You'll see here that we've actually got large rain guards. This is, unless you've got some very steep angled rain, the feed area will stay quite dry. Okay, so the whole unit's made out of galvanised sheet metal, except for the frame, and the frame we'll discuss separately in a moment. The sheet metal ranges from the bottom here, these bits which are load bearing is 2mm thick galvanised steel. These sides we either do in 1.5 or 1.8, so just depending on the component and the part. So it's a very, very heavy duty sheet metal construction. The frame itself, as you can see, is it's all hot dip galvanised. It's a full truss frame. It's quite different to anything else, and it's quite a lot more elaborate, and it weighs a lot more than anything else that you will see on the market. We'll walk over here and just have a look at one of the frames. This is a frame missing the 4 upright posts, but this frame, as you can see, is the full truss. It's made out of 50 by 50 millimetre predominantly. The bottom skids, these ones here, these bent skids, are out of 50 by 50 by 4mm, which is a very thick material. These outside ones are raised slightly. They're 40 by 40s. They're raised slightly. They're a stabilising skid. They'll actually be load bearing if you're on uneven ground, but they provide additional stability to the feeder. There's no slide out parts or anything like that. It'll just stay as is. Now on here you also have, as you see, an offset piece through here, and you can see it's not in the centre. The idea of this is that we can pick this feeder up with a standard forklift. So a standard fork length, when it's coming from the outside, from the rain guard, will come through to about here. So standard fork will work with this design, and of course we're not restricted to the width. It's not like we've got a slot. You can have forks that are wide apart or narrower. As long as you balance it, you're away. Okay, so the frame itself, you're looking at around about 120 kilos of weight, and then you've got the sheet metal all up. You're looking at a product which is close to 400 kilograms, which is a lot more than what you'd see with any of the other products on the market. Over here we have a tow hitch. Now, why do we have a tow hitch? The idea of this is that you can actually pull this feeder around quite satisfactorily around the paddock. So even if it's loaded, provided that you've got something big enough to pull it, or it's 4-wheel drive, you can just hook up and drag it around without any problem at all. And of course you can move it by a fork or whatever. You can pick the whole thing up and move it. The other idea of this is that you can hook on and drag it onto a tilt trailer if you want to relocate to a further distance. We do sell tilt trailers too. So this also, as you see, goes in and out. The length of the feeder will fit into a standard ute body. That's what it was designed for. That just allows you to get it all the way in and close the door. Okay, now you'll notice on here we have around about 200 odd screws on this. There is a lot of tech screws inside this unit. If we look in the top, if you were to come down this side, if we look over the top and inside, you'll see that there is a series, or there's actually 7 support pieces that go between the two sides. And even if you drop feed into this rapidly, it will not bulge, it will not blow the sides out like it will on some feeders. You have 3 sight glasses down the side and an indicator to show you how much volume is remaining in your feeder at any particular time. Unlike other feeders, again, we actually have a framed lid. So this framed lid, as you can see here, hot dip galvanised sides, hinge point, stops, and if I can swing that down, that's open at the moment, swing that down, and I've got a lock there, and that'll stop it blowing up in the wind. Okay, the feeder itself is double-sided. As we can see on this side, it's exactly what we saw on the other side, so we can accommodate obviously twice the number of animals as you would on a single-sided feeder. So all up, what you're buying here with a Feed Boss feeder is probably the strongest, at best value for money feeder on the market currently at this particular time.